Hi, everyone. Hope you had a chance to have a little bit of a break. We are in the final stretch here, just two more sessions before the drinks reception. And this session has a really interesting question. So I'm really looking forward to this one. Can AI help Europe's industries survive the energy crunch? So we typically tend to talk about AI as sort of causing or likely to cause the energy crunch, maybe causing it now, but certainly in the future with its massive demands on energy. But at the same time, it also provides opportunities to do things more efficiently here and now, right? And as we continue to see high costs and volatility within the energy market, it's a really interesting question, the extent to which AI can help energy companies, utility companies, but companies more broadly sort of manage through that context. So can it unlock smarter load management? Can it reduce risk? Can it restore competitiveness? Or is the complexity just too high for industrial players to really act too fast? So those are the questions we're going to be discussing today. I do want to encourage the audience again to submit their questions on the Slido, and we will incorporate that into the discussion. But to navigate this topic with me, very pleased to be joined to my left by Virginia Castellucci, Head of Sustainability and Advocacy at Xnatura. Next to Virginia, we have Julia Reinaud, Senior Director at Breakthrough Energy. And then next to Julie, we have Peter Lukassen, Director of Sustainability at Bosch. So Julia, I want to come to you first, if that's okay. So maybe it's quite a broad question, but let's set the context. Where do you see AI kind of making the biggest difference at the moment in terms of the clean energy transition?
Sure. So thank you very much for having me, Jonathan. I'm indeed Julia. I work with Breakthrough. Let me just say a few words about Breakthrough. We were founded by Bill Gates at the Paris COP in 2015, and we're focused on what we call the 3Ds, so discovering, developing, and deploying the clean technologies that we need to reach net zero. From our perspective, as we think about the transition, we're going to need more energy and not less. So it's not a question of it's sort of counterintuitive. Of course, we need to think about energy efficiency, but the reality is there's still many regions that don't have access to energy. And we need to think about sort of how do we make sure that we get three things: scalable, affordable, and clean energy. Yeah. Now, when I look at AI and the role that it can play, I see it both as you're saying, sort of potentially today, data centers and AI are the size of electricity consumption of the UK. And the IEA also predicts that it can be the size of Japan by 2030. So we're talking about major electricity consumption. On the other hand, I also see this as being a major beneficial in terms of addressing the energy needs that we have in terms of being able to make sure that we actually have the minerals that we need. So we've invested in companies like Cobalt Metal that are using AI, geoscience and data and AI to be able to discover where the minerals are. We are also invested in companies like reactive technologies that help optimize the grid, and thinking then about how do you avoid renewable curtailment. So overall, I'd say that there's definitely, and this is just a few examples, but we've invested in about 130 plus companies. We've invested we have under our management over $4 billion. Point is that AI is everywhere. Now, of course, you need to think about where do you use that AI and how do you make sure that the benefits outweigh the actual energy consumption. Happy to talk more about some of these examples, but definitely seeing about how, a little bit like how we think about where do we prioritize how we think about the transition, electrification first, if you can't, clean molecules, and of course we need to make sure about our carbon budget. I would argue that you need to consider that a little bit around AI as well and its energy uses. How do you prioritize how it can be beneficial for food and agriculture, for the clean energy supply, for optimization of solutions, including storage, and many more. And so I do think that, I'm optimistic that it has more value and an opportunity for the transition. Data from the IEA says that if you use it in industrial efficiency, you can save the amount of electricity of Mexico. So again, perhaps I'm talking a lot about geographies, but I do think we need to be careful around how we think about AI in the transition.
Yeah, I mean, not at the risk of gross oversimplification, then can you even say whether it's a net at this point, a net challenge or a net opportunity? Or do you have to kind of then break it down to actually, as you say, sort of different use cases or examples within certain sectors or regions?
Yeah, I think, I mean, again, I have two co-panelists here. I would say it's a net opportunity. The question is how fast can you have the rate of adoption of AI in industrial uses, for instance, and that comes back to energy management, similarities and energy efficiency. In the power sector, I do think that AI is a bit more of just a call to action. We need more electricity, we need more clean electricity, but the bottlenecks are still the same as grid connection, the availability and the permitting. So I'd say for Europe, it's more, again, a wake-up call as to we need to make sure that we double down on scaling the energy supply and on scaling, how do we scale the adoption of solutions that are beneficial for businesses, for transportation, and for others. So AI is another layer. You can call it a multiplier, an accelerator, but still, the challenges remain as to what the bottlenecks are to be able to get to that transition faster.
Yep. So Virginia, what about how is AI helping companies to sort of monitor and manage their environmental risks across kind of energy assets?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Virginia Castellucci from Xnatura. I'll give you just a little bit of our background. We are a natural tech company working based in Italy, but working all around the world. We basically give data about nature and climate to company, and we gather that through technologies. So satellite images and sensor on the ground based on bioacoustic, image recognition, ADNA. Of course, we work in different fields, agri-food, infrastructure, real estate, but today we are talking about energy and in particular renewable energy. About that, I'm a bit a particular, I would say, because of course we need renewable energy. In 2050, we're going to have like the 85% of energy from renewable technology. But think about the fact that renewable energy has a huge impact on land and on nature. To produce 1 gigawatt of energy, we need at least 3,000 hectares of land. The wind turbines are killing every year in the US 500,000 birds annually. So there's a lot of impact on renewable energy, on nature. So AI can help us gather a lot of information, a lot of data in order to understand the impact of renewable energy on nature, but also to minimize risk. And about risk, there are a lot of also physical risk for renewable energy assets. I always think about Italy, but this applies all over the world. Think about the fact that in Italy, on 2023, we got 135% more extreme events, climate weather extreme events compared to the previous year. And this is an issue. In fact, a lot of companies that work with us in the renewable energy sector, they use AI to predict climate risk and to prioritize which are the assets that should be more under, the radar because of climate change and nature protection. So yes, we need AI because at the moment we need a lot of data for the environment, and I think it's key.
Would you say it's more, in your experience with Xnatura, to what extent you're advising companies, or are they using it more as a kind of compliance tool, or rather a kind of strategic decision-making enabler, right? Is it just helping them to kind of gather the data, make sure they're compliant and do that more efficiently,
Yeah.
or is it actually helping to drive strategic decisions?
Okay. When it comes to compliance, I always say that compliance is never compliance. So I always ask this question, would you not do the financial report if it wasn't mandatory? Because it would be crazy. I think
Still have to do it, right? If
yes, you still have to do it.
to run a good business.
Every CFO would say, no, of course we're doing it, because you need the financial report to understand the financial health state of a company. And we should look at the report on sustainability in the same way. It's not a matter of compliance, it's a matter of having a picture of which are the impacts, but also the dependencies on sustainability and on nature. So we still need to do it.
Yeah.
Not because of compliance, of course.
Yeah. But is it helping to enable kind of, right, so you sort of understand risk, but then to sort of help the companies then identify opportunity as well to then form strategy?
Yes, of course. It can help prioritize, it can help understand where to invest, for example, because you can use for example, the IPCC scenarios to understand what about the weather in the next 5, 10, 25 years. And this is so important because it's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, I live near Milan, but Milan, it's underfloating every 2 weeks now.
Yeah. Yeah, the impact on sort of climate forecasting, I think, is really interesting and impactful, right? So, Peter, I want to come to you now. How is Bosch applying AI? Can you maybe say a little bit about how you and your role in Bosch are applying it to optimize energy use in particular?
Yeah, sure. And also thanks for inviting. So I'm within Bosch, which is a big company, and I'm in the mobility division. And there I'm heading sustainability for the mobility aftermarket. So we are relying a lot on AI, but this is also not something completely new. So we already, well, we are an engineering company. We are already using for a very long time. We are using machine learning. We had Industry 4.0, and now we are calling it artificial intelligence, which is the next evolution basically to something which is not a new kid in town, but has evolved over time. And it's a very powerful tool. It is something, if it is used correctly, it can speed up a lot. Sometimes I'm comparing it. So our parents, they had an encyclopedia at home, and then at some point there came the internet and Google. So you could access a bigger data layer out there. You were not limited to your Brockhaus or whatever encyclopedia you had. You could look around in the world. You had more data. And now, after time, we have seen with the internet, there is too much data and it becomes complicated to sort it. And now there is a tool like artificial intelligence which help you to sort it out. But also like with Google, if you ask the wrong question, you will get the wrong answer. And with AI, if you do not know about prompting, then you get a wrong answer faster. And you also cannot really judge whether it's really wrong if you do not understand the matter. So AI is very important and it helps us. And overall, we are very proud of being ahead of our climate targets. So we have decarbonized quite a lot over the last years since 2018, and just going with the geographies. Now we have decarbonized 35%, which is more than 130 million tons of CO2. We are more than the energy or CO2 of Belgium. We are approaching the Netherlands in the amount of carbon which we have decarbonized over the last years. However, the first 35%, of course, are the easier one. So we started with a lot of topics like, if I go to scope 1 and 2 in our manufacturing sites, about preemptive maintenance. And this already had been feasible before AI. But now if I look forward, we can address also other topics like especially heating. So balance the heating and cooling of your manufacturing depending on the load, depending on the people working in, because these are a lot of data points which you can generate, and AI can react on it much faster and more flexible than simpler algorithms which we had before. So we can address a big pool also in this scope 1 and 2 area. However, scope 1 and 2 is only 1% of our emissions, and scope 3 is 100 times our scope 1 and 2 emissions. And scope 1 and 2 emissions also basically are solved because we are at 85% reduction there. So now we have to look at our scope 3, and there comes a lot of complexity in. So just in my divisions, I'm talking about 300,000 active part numbers in 200 countries with 20,000 suppliers, and bill of materials with normally at least 50 or 100 components in. This is nothing which you can easily analyze.
Yeah.
This is nothing which you can put in a spreadsheet and then tell somebody, oh, where's the hotspot? For this, you need faster algorithms. Of course, you have to make the basics right. You have to work on your master data, which is extremely critical. You have to have a sound data pool on which you are then using your tools on, and there AI can be really helpful. But it will give you not the answer, it will help you narrow down your search fields, where you will then really put a human, an expert on looking into it and deciding on where to pull the next string basically on this journey.
Yeah. And is it to the point around the sort of energy context and challenges that you're facing perhaps in Bosch, right? High energy costs, volatility in the market. Is it helping to navigate that context?
Yeah, well, in the end, if you look at CO2 emissions, at some point it's always about energy. So whether it's directly in your production or it's indirectly within your tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, N, it doesn't matter. And especially if I go to scope 1 and 2, electricity, just consuming electricity is the one thing. And the other thing, if you talk about energy, is heating, which is really a big proportion, be it now with electrification of heating going to heat pumps or still having fossils, there is a direct impact. And if I look at my suppliers, if I look, for example, at the raw materials I'm sourcing with steel, also there it helps me load balancing in the end for my supply chain. So it is an indirect impact, but it's the much bigger impact for my overall carbon balance overall as Bosch.
Yeah. So audience, we have about 8 minutes left. We do want to keep to time here. So please do send questions into Slido if you have them. Here is one. How do you manage AI consumption with less energy objectives? Also from a corporate communication messaging. Right. Okay. So basically, how do you? Yeah, you need to sort of lessen the amount of energy you're using. At the same time, you have this imperative to use AI, right?
Can I come back to one point that Peter, you were mentioning? I think AI is like talking about the similarity that I'd say is like the private sector. There's machine learning AI, and then there's generative AI. I think it's like when you say, is it an SME or is it a large corporation? I mean, there's so many multiplicities of what AI is, right?
Yes.
I think one thing that speaks to me when you're talking about the role it can play in a corporation is whether or not you have access to data, whether or not you have access to what is your energy consumption, what is the energy consumption of your tier 1, 2, 3, and more suppliers. And I come back to the point around AI is, once you're... Again, if I'm trying to explain to my kid what is AI, I'm also learning about it. It's like, okay, well, you have machine learning. It's like you have a good intern that can help you with the search. If you have generative AI, you have more of a collaborator who's helping you discover and helping you think through even further. That's what I'd say around the big challenge being, do you have access to the data or not? If you think about generative AI, you need to be able to have predictive models that may basically say whether or not you have the data that can help you grow what is the solution set you're looking for. In grids and energy efficiency, that's the whole point. I think we need to be able to make sure that we have the right data points to inform how you're going to use the AI, for what purpose. You make the analogy of prompting, and that being, from my perspective, is like anything related to how are you going to manage your energy consumption is first and foremost, do you have the data? Then what tools do you use? And then what is the corporate culture for moving fast or not? I tend to say that AI and energy is the new power couple. How you want that couple to evolve is going to be how you treat that couple, which direction are you going towards that couple. So not sure if it helps on communication messaging, but it does sort of point to AI is not a purpose in itself. It's what you do with it. Is it going to be grid optimization? Is it going to be energy efficiency? What ultimately, if you have the data points, you can use it for something that is efficient for you.
What about safeguards, though, to ensure that AI delivers sort of accurate and transparent results, right? And the sort of challenges around kind of transparency or the black box of an AI system. How do you put safeguards around that? How have you done that at Bosch, for example?
Well, it's a lot about education of the people using it, and again, coming back to Google, if you put something into a Google search, you get something out. And you have to be able to phrase the correct question. And if you can ask correct question, then normally you will also know about whether the answer is reliable or not. But you shouldn't just phrase any open question to AI, because then AI tends to get hallucinating. And this can be a downfall if you then rely on this hallucinated answer. But if you know how an AI is working and that it is a tool which you have to tell also what to look for, then you will basically also get something back. And you can, and always also, if I'm in doubt, I ask also for the sources. So I get the sources from the AI and to look them up, but not blind trusted.
Yeah. And Virginia, would you say AI is truly transformative, or do you think it is a bit of a distraction from kind of deeper structural reforms that we need around renewable energy, for example?
Well, I don't think it's a distraction, because actually it's giving us because we always think about carbon, but there is a word behind carbon in sustainability and in the environment. Of course, we focus more on nature, but it's not only that. And I think AI, it's giving us the opportunity to gather all the data and the information we need from the environment that we weren't able to do so before. So we always got information about biodiversity, but we used to get them like with traditional method. But now that there is climate change, there is biodiversity loss, we need more data. So without AI, it would be impossible to get all this kind of information to get decisions. So I think it's key. I know it has a huge impact, especially on energy, but I'm looking at the other side.
Well, so there's an interesting question here on that. So are there any bad use cases that governments should restrict due to low social benefit and high energy use?
I think it's an interesting question, of course, but it comes back to, can you actually, without wanting to answer that question literally, I would probably go back to the prioritization, right? You want to be able to use AI to make your energy system more efficient. You want it to be able to solve, we're seeing some of the hyperscalers play a major role in actually playing that catalytic demand for the energies that we need, like geothermal. Fervo, one of our companies, 24/7 PPA with Google. That's the first for those type of examples. Ideally, you would want for there to be some type of prioritization. Yeah. So that you're focusing, because indeed, as Virginia was saying, on the importance of energy consumption related to data centers and AI. Can you think about how it can play a bigger role in efficiencies in optimizing the grid, in actually discovering new materials? Then what is the role in government in restricting other uses? I'm not a politician. So.
Yeah, I think it's a provocative question, because I think that to suggest that level of control that governments can take at the same time, is there much social benefit in the creation of these videos and the risks around disinformation? I don't know. Yeah, and the energy
it's technology. Yeah. Technology is agnostic. It can be used for good reasons, for bad reasons.
And you can't really have government controlling that to that level.
No. Well, you could. The point is that we are, it's hard to keep pace on the technologies we have and to, norm that. So I think sometimes we just need to think about how we use it. And for sure, there are some that are using for good reasons. So there's no way out, I think.
But I think this is the issue currently with having AI basically for free, like with any public good. If you have a public good, then basically it gets also wasted. Yeah. As soon there is a price connected to it, and all the big AI players, they are beginning to commercialize it, then we get a more sensible usage of these resources. But I would really not advise to try to put some artificial limits on it, because you will never win this.
The other aspect we haven't really touched upon is actually the role in AI in providing a bit more equity, and particularly here I'm thinking about everything that has been done related to farmers being able to predict the weather, being able to predict where do you make best use of fertilizers, or how you think about.
Thank you for saying that.
And so from my perspective, it's also making sure that AI is used in a way that doesn't divide or provide even more equity spread than what we have, and how do we again make use of where there are opportunities. The list can go on in terms of how you can use AI for solving some of the challenges, but of course there's always a dark side as to how you think about it.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to have to leave it there because we're out of time, but I want to thank my panelists very much for this conversation.
Pleasure.
Thank
Thank you.
you.